what I know, this is what I can do. And then once I got into the workforce a little bit, I realized, gosh, I'm more than just what I learned, which seems kind of silly, but we're so focused on doing the right thing and following the right steps. And each one of you has so many skills, abilities, talents that make you unique, make you an individual that's going to serve you in your job in the future. So don't forget about that. Kind of embrace that and use it to your advantage moving forward in your career.
Kind of going along with that, the things that you learn in school are important, but you learn how to do your job when you get there. So I remember being so stressed out the first day of my internship, and then I did my internship at the same place that I'm working now. So, and then again when I started. But they taught me how to do my job, and the things you learn in school provide the background knowledge that you need. But don't worry so much about knowing everything before you start, because they're going to teach you how to do your job.
That's the truth. I mean, it's just continuous learning. Like when you get your degree, when you walk across the stage, you are not done learning. It is only beginning. So hopefully that's not a bad thing for some of you.
One thing that I wish I knew was that your job, your title, your job description is going to be always evolving, always changing, especially if you're working in any sort of technology, which I think we all are. Just, be comfortable with change, and it's okay that your day-to-day isn't the same from one day to the next.
Basically managing stereotypes of your generation as a whole. And I know that every generation says the one coming out isn't as good as the one in the past. So I was wondering if you guys were aware of those kind of thoughts and what you did to manage them. I know that people tend to categorize this generation as like the entitlement generation. I'm wondering if you face any problems with that, if you're aware of it and what you did about it.
One thing to remind those people is that generation raised this generation. So just remind them of that. But one thing is, what the stereotypes are. We're entitled, so we have to work hard. We don't have communication skills. All we want to do is text and email. So make it a conscious effort to send more handwritten thank you notes and make more phone calls. So the first thing about stereotypes is to identify which ones are real and do things that counteract that. Because if my generation is only texting, I'll call most of my customers, so they go, hey, this guy's different. If you send emails all the time, I'll send handwritten thank you notes, so they go, this guy's different. So the first thing is to recognize what the stereotypes are and do what you can to counteract that.
Yeah, Jason, I think you touched on it with the texting and email, all the social media. Half of an interview, if not more, is the way that you're able to communicate with the person across from you. It's the face-to-face interaction. And we actually have a Toastmasters chapter at work that I'm a charter member of, and that is a fantastic way to get comfortable in front of a person or hundreds of people. So just being able to interact and communicate with face-to-face, I think is a pretty good one.
And Jenny, we have one out there, right? Okay, I was going to say, there is a Toastmasters table out there. I could not agree more. That is something you really, really, really need to take advantage of.
If you could go back to your education, what should we be learning right now is really stressing? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that.
It's not only important to focus on what you're learning in your classes, but also what you're learning maybe in a volunteer organization you're involved in, or in other extracurricular things. If you like to do videos, museum exhibits, because all those other things outside of just your classes. If you're doing your classes and you're passing, I think that's good, and that will serve you well, and having a degree will help you get a job. And certainly what you've learned, will be important, critical thinking skills, everything else. But also, what are you doing to make yourself a well-rounded person? Because that does set you apart, from yes, not great, but it's sort of life experiences and other things that I think also do both actually work. Especially if you're someone, psychology major, a history major like myself, there's some wiggle room with what you can do, so focus on other things too.
You can also go ahead and start reaching out to maybe some people who are a year or two into their career and start asking them questions. So take advantage of the Alumni Center. The Alumni Center can, if you want to get into oil and gas, they can put you in contact with somebody, like us, that can answer some questions for you. And go ahead and ask them questions like, what do you love about your job? What do you dislike about your job? What do you wish you knew, at my stage of the game when you were applying for jobs? So I would go ahead and start engaging people that are already in the workforce, but maybe early on. And they can give you some pretty good ideas about how to leverage your last, whether it be year, semester, whatever it is, and make the most out of it.
I think that's really good advice, especially for nursing. I mean, y'all have, I'm saying y'all, I'm sure there's more
It's
of
a
the other
cult.
parts of it. It will remain one too. You have to do all your semesters, you have to do all your clinicals, but you know kind of what area you want to go into. So even though I had to do labor and delivery, I don't even look at pregnant women anymore. I don't want to take care of anyone who's under the age of 18. So just kind of keeping in mind, like, yes, I need to pass this class. There's going to be general things I need to know, but what's going to be very important for me in those first couple of years.
I think social media plays a huge role in the job process. I manage all of our social networks, and we are always on LinkedIn posting our jobs. So I think it's really important, first and foremost, to update your LinkedIn profile constantly. If you can be active on there and share articles that are related to your field or related to film. But I think actively reaching out and on Twitter, especially as a form of communication, I think that's great to reach out to people and maybe even just a direct message here and there if you want to meet up for coffee. I think that the more active that you can be, the better. It's not something that's going away. It's only something that is getting stronger by the day.
And keep that in mind. Make sure you Google yourself, because my company definitely Googles everyone. So notice what comes up when you Google yourself and kind of try to manage that so it's appropriate.
On the opposite end, for graduate nurse positions, as long as you're looking for the typical graduate nurse position at a hospital, social media is not going to play a part in that. They're not looking at your Facebook page. I would clean it up. I'd make sure it's, not disgusting, but they're not going to, don't worry about being on Twitter.